So for our art today, you'll want 2 containers of water. You'll want your paint brushes. I thought I had a 6 and a 3, but I actually have an 8 and a 3. This little smallest one was a 3. And a straw, and I said a large straw. If I compare that to my brush, you can see the difference in size. And I said a large brush because if you use a smaller brush, you could get a head rush just trying to blow into a small straw. If you don't have a straw, there is a process you can use with your brush. So hopefully I'm able to demonstrate that as well. What else do we need? What else do we need? Well, we need to get into art mode. So let's do that while we're all together. So thank you again for coming on board and for joining. I do have my poppy on. So this picture is for Remembrance Day. So let's just get into art mode, and we'll take 3 deep breaths. And at the top of the breath, just hold that for a second and then release, and find something that you like in the room that makes you smile. And then we'll just release that breath and drop your shoulders down if you're able to. If you find they're up here, that's going to cause you some neck issues. So drop them down as much as you can. So first, deep breath in, and we'll hold that and smile and release. And our second deep breath in, and hold it and release. And our third deep breath in, and hold it just for a second and smile and release. And so for those that are wondering, we have the picture up of the 2 poppies and the 2 little buds. There was no actual pre-drawing required. So we're going to actually create those poppies while we're in class today. So with that, for anybody that wasn't here a minute ago, we need 2 containers of water, keep 1 clear and 1 for rinsing. Your brushes, I've got a 3 and an 8, actually, not a 6. A straw, so your straw we're going to use, and a blow dryer. So we'll do the background first, and then we'll dry it, and then we'll move on to the poppy. So with that, I'm just going to turn my camera around. I too, like you, have a blank canvas. I'm dipping into my clear water with my brush. This is clear water. I'm going into cobalt blue. Oh, actually, before we do that, my apologies. Let's go back into that clear water without the paint, and we're going to wet the whole canvas. So we'll just wet all of this just with clear water first. Sorry about that. Don't need to confuse anyone. So we're just going to get water on our canvas. The whole thing's getting wet. We're doing a sky behind our poppies. And you can check, if you hold it at an angle, you'll see I've got some dry spots. So I'm just going to touch water on those dry spots. And just holding it, just tipping it a little bit so you can see if you've missed any spots with the light. And you can see I'm not too concerned. I'm just going to get that water on and move it around. So it looks like, oh, I have a little dry spot there. So just double check. If you have a dry spot, it's going to leave a little ring, or the paint won't go there. And if you have an excess of water, you can just use your paper towel and just let that water be absorbed with the paper towel. And now, as I was saying, into the cobalt blue, I'm going to put that color on my canvas. And you can see it's going to run. It's going to go all different directions. I want a nice coating of blue. I'm going to create some clouds with my paper towel in a minute. Firstly, I want to get that blue on. So if you have your canvas on an easel, you'll notice that it's starting to run down the bottom. And you can take your canvas, if you're on an easel, and you can turn it up the other way so that you don't have that pooling at the other side. And I'm just adding on a little bit extra blue while it's still wet. And if I have lighter spots or darker spots in different areas, I'm not concerned about that. I'm just going to turn it and let it run a little bit. And I'm back up, right side up. And now I'm going to use a piece of paper towel while it's still wet, but the paper towel is dry. And I'm going to start just pressing lightly onto my canvas. You see, I'm making clouds. So your clouds may be different than mine. But we're just making some nice clouds in the background. And they can come right down to the bottom. They can be larger or smaller. If you find you're not happy with, you've made too many clouds, you can go back in and put a little bit of extra blue in there. That's up to you. If you're happy with your clouds, excellent, that's great. So I'm just demonstrating, if you wanted to add a little bit of blue back into your picture, you can just pop that on lightly, just using my brush in a sideways fashion. And now that I have my sky painted, before I go and do anything else, this needs to be dry. So I'm going to mute myself. And I'm going to blow dry my background. So I'm going to blow dry all of this with my blow dryer. When I'm going to check it, I'm going to use the back of my hand just to see if it's dry. If it's wet, it'll be cold. So it should feel warm to the touch when you're finished with it dry. Now I just had a little bit of lifting in the corners of mine, so I've just retaped my corners down. Sometimes that happens when you wet your whole canvas. But you can see I've got a little bit of darker, and I've got some nice shading in there. I've got the looks of billowy clouds. And just to give some people just a little bit extra time to have those dry, just make sure that we're all done blow drying. We'll draw a card. So if somebody wants to say stop.
Stop. Stop.
Stop on that one. Okay. This is about letting go. That's a nice card. I always like that one. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next color we're going to work with is cadmium red. So I'm going to work with two colors, cadmium red and crimson red, and we're also putting some yellow in our poppy, and we're going to put the same cobalt blue that's in the sky. That's going in the center of our flower and at the base of our flower before it hits the stem. So I'm switching to a number 3 brush. I'm going into cadmium red. And I'm just going to put on, it almost looks like a smiley face. Like little eyes and a smile. So this is cadmium red. This is just over to the right. This is in cadmium red. Now that we've got that on, let's expand on it a little bit. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So we're making what I would say were those eyes. We're going to make those a little bit bigger with the same color, still in the number 3 brush in cadmium red. Now let's put another little piece above that in cadmium red. Getting some more cadmium red. I'm going to expand on this mouth and make it look almost like a Ronald McDonald mouth. Just come down a little bit into a little lip formation at the bottom. And we can do a little flick off to the side. While I've got that cadmium red and the same brush out, I'm going to do another little flick off the bottom. Now I mentioned I had 2 reds. The other red is crimson. If you have a alizarin crimson or you have a carmine color. If I work with alizarin crimson, while this is still wet, I'm going to put this other color in the center and fill that gap in. So I've got 2 reds on my flower now. I can add a little at the top. I can just add a few details here and there. And I'm going to let this flower dry for a few minutes. And I'm moving on to the second flower. So the second flower, I'm doing just an oval. This is in cadmium red. Just an oval. This is a bit smaller poppy than the one above it. And I'm going to come down into a V-shaped formation below that. You can see I've just got a little flick of paint off to the side. I can do another one up here. This poppies aren't perfect. Well, they are when they're on our lapel, but they're not perfect in the fields. And I'm going to make a stem for the bottom of that, another V. And then I'm introducing my second red, which is my alizarin crimson. And I'm going to fill in that center spot. So I've got 2 different reds in this poppy. I'm filling in that spot. And I'm also going to add to that V down below and bring it up a little bit on one side. So as it dries, I've got some lights and darks in and amongst. Some are lighter, some are darker. That's okay. We haven't done the center of our poppy yet. And my crimson is kind of pooled down the bottom here, making it a little bit darker. That's perfect for where my stem is going to be. If you don't have that, we're going to create it anyways with some blue. So don't worry, but mine has just naturally done that. My next color, we're going back to the first poppy, and my next color is medium yellow. So I'm going to put some yellow off to one side. If it starts to blend into my flower, that's okay. I'm going to put some medium yellow in that center triangle that was left. So I can see it's starting to blend a little bit, and that's okay too. If yours is doing the same thing, that's okay. Bringing that medium yellow over to the other flower, just filling in the one side. And I'm going to pop a little bit of yellow just at the top on the one side. My yellow seems to want to run, so I'm just going to give it a little tap just to stop it right where it's at. There we go. And if you have some mixing and blending of colors going on in and amongst your poppy, that's fine. That's perfect. That's what poppies look like. You've got a number of different colors. So I'm going to let the poppies dry. I'm not going to blow dry them. I'm just going to leave them and let them dry. We are going to paint centers on them. We are going to put a little bit of detail at the base of the flower. But right now, what's there, let's let it dry. And we'll move on to those two green buds. So the two green buds that are on either side of the flower, one is down below, one is underneath this side flower, and it's just a bud. So I'm using sap green just to paint the outer side of the bud. And up here, just to balance this picture and to give another bud, we're going to put another one up top. I'm still using the sap green and getting all the paint only to the tip of my brush. I'm going to go to the end of my bud, and I'm going to start just to make that trail down to my flower. And it's going to come below my flower, right to the bottom. Still using sap green, making sure I only have paint on the tip of my brush. I'm going to go to the other bud, and I'm going to give it a nice big arch and have it come down to the bottom of my canvas. So through this process, if you're holding your breath or your shoulders are up around your ears, just drop your shoulders and take a deep breath. From the bottom of my poppy on the left, my shortest poppy, at the very bottom, I'm going to draw a line down to the bottom, but I'm giving it a bit of an arch. And you can see it's picked up that red color. So I've got red and green in my stem, and that's okay. So I can come back and I'll add some green or a darker color at the base of my flower, and just whatever is in there will naturally run down that stem. But I'm going to let it dry a little bit before I do that. So I'm going to the other flower. And again, just to check and see that you've only got paint on the tip of your brush. And from that flower, I'm just going to trail a line all the way down to the base of my canvas. Now you see I've got a little bit of a join there in that stem. It's a little thicker in one spot. But once I put my other colors in, that will disappear. It will still be there, but it will appear less obvious. So we're still letting our flowers dry a little bit. We have our petals. So in the middle of those petals, that probably is still a little bit wet, and I'm going to add some green, or my yellow, to my green. Now just blend that in a little bit. Just blend that all together. So yellow and green makes almost a mossy color. And I'll do the same with the other petal, or the other bud. I'm calling it a petal. It's a bud. So I'm blending yellow and green together on my bud. Now I'd like that to be a little more green. I just wiped out some of my greens. I'm going to add that green back on. I just want that yellow near the tip. And I can do the same on the other bud. It's just add a little bit of yellow near the tip. And we'll come back and we'll give that another little line just to indicate that it's part of it'll just look a little more like a seed pod if we put a little line in the center using the blue we're going to use when we do our center of our flowers. So hopefully you've got a little bit of yellow on the tip of your bud. We've got our yellow in our flowers. And we've got some little light rough edges around our flowers, a little bit of a petal just coming off. So that always makes it look more natural just by adding a little bit, just a little flick of extra color coming off a flower. And as I mentioned, my stem took a little bit of that red, so I'm going to go back on and give it a green color. I'm just touching that in. And we're just a couple of minutes away from halftime, so I'm going to read this card for those of you who are still finishing with your details. We will come back on and do more, but at this point, I'm just going to read this card. It says, I release the need to control my life. Wow. Are we not all out of control? What you control the most causes you pain. Breathe in, breathe out, and let go of trying to control your life. For some people, that would be very, very difficult. I release the need to control my life. What you control the most causes you the most pain. Breathe in, breathe out, and let go of trying to control your life. Thank you for saying stop with that card. Such a good reminder that, really there is a higher power in charge of a lot of things. We are not in control of everything. So sometimes we just have to let it go. Okay, so we are at this point where we're going to add some details to our leaves. But firstly, we're going to add some details to our flower. So using the same blue you used in your background, but because we're not watering it down first, it's going to show up in more detail. So this is the center of our flower on this side, and it goes off to the side this way. this is the direction. So my center of my flower goes off to the left. So I'm doing little dots in on my painting, just little dots, allowing this section here to be almost an overleaf and then coming off to the side. And I'm using the same blue for the base where my flower comes to the stem. So this is the same blue. And I'll do the same on the other flower, except this part is open. It's open more to the left and to the sky. You can see a little bit more in the center of the flower. This one kind of goes off a little bit. This one's a little bit taller. So I'm just doing little dots. We'll still come back and do a little bit more work, but one is facing upward and the other is facing to the left. And with my blue, I do want to give a little bit of a base where the flower hits my stem. I'm also going to do a little bit of detail on that bud. So from where the stem is into the bud, I'm going to just put a tiny line. And I'm going to do the same on the other bud. From where the stem comes right, and it's going to go right onto the bud. So that's still using the same blue that we have in our sky, but this isn't watered down. So back to do just a little bit more work with our flowers before we do the bottom, before we do the base. I have cadmium red, and I'm going to put a little arch underneath just to indicate that this is a petal in front. This is just underneath the blue that I put for in front of the little stamens. So just this little arch section here. So that defines the difference between the outside of the flower and the center. And with the same color, cadmium red, I'm going to do the same process on the other flower. I'm giving an outer petal. This is the outer petal. And an outer petal on the other side, just to join those two together. And I can take some of that down just a little bit into the flower. So there is a little bit of a divide between the two. You can see where one is in the front and the other is behind. And if you like, you could make one of those petals a little bit bigger. You could expand that if you want to. But not to make it too smooth looking. And now I'm going to tip my canvas down. Tip my camera down, and I'm putting my artwork flat on the table. With clear water and sap green, I'm going to put a line of wet paint, fairly wet paint because you want it to move across the bottom. And then I'm going to use my straw. And I'm going, oh, I need more water on there. And then I'm going to blow with my straw. So you want it to be fairly wet because you want it to move when you blow that with the straw. And then I'm going to blow with the straw. And I'll get lines that will move up my canvas. And I can make them go as high as I like, as long as I have wind in me. That one's gone right over the poppy, that's fine. And I'll need some more paint and some more water. And here I'm adding a little bit of yellow and water. And I'm going to repeat my process. And I can tap in just a little bit of blue here and there. A little bit of water. Now I'll need to leave that flat to dry, otherwise it will all run back down. Oh, it might be okay. It will run back down to the bottom. Actually, it won't all run down, so I guess I could put that back on the easel. And you can do as much as you like or as little as you like. But I'm going to go back into this poppy because it looks like my center has just faded a little bit. It might have been a little bit wet when I was putting the colors on. So I'm just going to darken that off with some fresh color. And I'm going to sign my art. Do remember to sign your art. It's important to do that. I know we're done a little bit early, but I would like to see what you've come up with and how you enjoyed that process. I'm actually going to take a little bit of sap green and just run it right down to the bottom so that I don't have that spot that looks like it's not touching anything. There. So a couple of people had said that they weren't able to get a straw and they weren't sure how they were going to do their stems. And so if you don't have, you can just do do lines with your brush, just thin lines. And then just give a little bit of a base at the bottom so it doesn't look like they're just suspended out in the middle of nowhere. But you can add more if you like. So I'm going to turn my camera back the other way. There we go. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed doing that. The blowing with the straw is a fun way to do art. And you can do all kinds of different things with this process. It just doesn't have to be poppies. So try it with a different picture with just flowers in it, or just do those stems and put little flowers on the ends of all of them. Next week, we're going to get a little more technical. So we're going to do this picture. So hopefully you're up for it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Bye-bye.